Welcome to Dexerto's Curveball Preview Show presented by DJ Esports. Sign up on djesports.io to immediately participate in the World Prediction Series. Earn your deposit bonus for World Stage 2 using promo code DJEX50 for a 50% deposit bonus up to 200 USDT. You can also join the DJ Esports Discord for additional bonuses and incentives. Welcome, guys. Welcome to the show. We're kicking things off here today in a bit of a different format. I'm going to be hosting. My name is Mitch, and I've got a couple friends here to talk about the VALORANT Champions. We're talking to Steel today, as well as fRoD. We're going to be going through the groups, guys. First of all, Steel, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
And fRoD, familiar face. How you feeling today, man?
Doing good, man. I mean, I'm really excited for this show. Unfortunately, Banks can't be here, but, you know, we get one of the great minds in NA to kind of pick his brain, firsthand experiences, what he's gone through there. So, you know, really excited and you know, looking forward to this.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we're here to talk about Champions, the brackets, how things are going to be set up. We're here to preview all of Champions for you guys at home. And I'm expecting there to be a bunch of clashing opinions, let's say, because between sample sizes, between regional biases, we've got a whole bunch to discuss here today, so let's just get right into it, guys. Let's start talking about the groups and Champions, and most particularly, we're going to go top to bottom. Let's start with Group A. Tell me, the first question I have for each of you, are there clear favorites to make it out of this group?
I think this group is pretty much clear favorites. I think if anyone says anything other than Ascend and Envy, they're just joking.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I agree.
Right.
Like, it seems pretty straightforward. I mean, it's going to be a battle between those two, which one gets the first seed, in my opinion, but it's almost a lock for both of them to get through. I'm not really seeing the other teams like posting that much competition, unfortunately.
Yeah, obviously, when we're talking about those teams, right, we're talking about Keystars and X10. And we haven't seen a lot from them really on the international stage, certainly not a lot that would spur us on to believe that they could beat an Envy or an Ascend, but is there even a small bit of upset potential there, fRoD?
I mean, I'm not too sure, to be honest. I mean, some of these teams, like, they have a lot of experience, or they've gotten a lot of experience, like, playing in some of these tournaments and some of these, like, majors. And I haven't really seen much growth out of them, like, time over time. Now maybe some of these LCQ teams from some of the other groups, like, they're hitting different highs. But some of these teams that maybe, you know, they're getting into some of these champion stages due to, like, past accomplishments, you know, they kind of have to get with the meta, get with the times. And I'm not too sure if they're going to be able to do with that. And plus my mindset with that is, when you look at a team like an Ascend and Envy, there's just way too much firepower in general. They're just that good of teams that I think the gap is just too large, and I'm not too sure if it's going to happen. Maybe on a map here and there, but I don't see it really happening.
Yeah, I mean, I can see that. I think, yeah, obviously they're in a pretty stacked group. I got to ask, Steel, you played against Ascend, right? One of the teams that's set to make it out of this, according to pretty much everybody. Do you think that coming into this event, we're going to see a stronger Ascend than what we had in Masters? And from your experience of playing against them, you think they'll match up to the likes of an Envy, maybe?
I think with every tournament and every match that you play, you're automatically just getting better. You're learning more. You're adding to your protocols. You're figuring out what works for you in terms of agent composition and map pool and everything. I think one thing that is going to be different right now, though, is that there's going to be the addition of Fracture. Or am I dumb?
No, I don't think there is. Is it? Is
there?
No, sorry, there is Fracture.
No Fracture, no chamber. Yeah,
that's it. Yeah.
No chamber, but Fracture. And I think that's going to be interesting because it's going to... I've noticed that there's a lot of teams that do have like a permanent ban map, a map that they just like refuse to play. They don't even like practice it. Now you're adding in a map that hasn't really had big tournament play. It's been played at like smaller events, but I don't know if many of these teams that are going to champs have played that map. I don't know if they've played it in matches, and I feel like that's one of those things where, you know, Valorant's a game to 13 to win. It's like win 2 in overtime to win. There's ultimates, there's new maps coming out, there's agent balances coming out so frequently that I think it's very hard to anticipate what you're going to get. You can obviously say, like, these are the more consistent teams and they have really high highs, and their lows are also, like, their skill floor is high as well. So when we're looking at teams like Ascend and Envy, we can almost certainly say it's going to be a no-brainer that they get through. However, if they drop a map, that's a different story, but it's a BO3 for a reason. The better team usually comes out on top in BO3s or BO5s especially, where, you know, losing a map or keeping a close scoreline, it's like, it's whatever, you still win.
Now, obviously, when Envy went to Masters, they weren't necessarily pegged to be a finalist team or one that was to take the trophy, and they managed to perform incredibly well there. Do you think that coming into Champions, that extra pressure of the expectation to deliver the same is going to weigh them down a little bit?
I think that team in general is just a team that hasn't really done super well under pressure. We saw it all throughout the year during Champions or Masters events, and then even when they got to the finals, the grand finals against Gambit at Berlin, it was the same thing. You see two different versions of the team that's fearless, that's hitting all their strides, hitting all their shots, and making it feel like you have no answer against them. And then you have the other team that's just like, are they even trying? Are they shooting back? Like, what's going on with these guys? So really feel like it's not so much about the pressure of being at Champions. I think it comes down to the pressure of that given match. So if it's a group stage match, unless it's like an elimination one, there's probably not that much pressure. It's probably just like par for the course. When you start going deeper into the brackets, that's when the pressure starts mounting. Like, are we really doing this? It's like you're starting a clutch round situation. You're like 1 versus 5. The first 3 or 4, like you're taking them all off. Then you're in the 1v1. It's like, holy crap, I can actually do this. And that's when you're like, your heartbeat starts going. You're like, oh crap, I just, you know, the 1v5 is harder, but the 1v1 is the hardest. I don't know why.
Yeah, I get that, right? The
Yeah.
pressure of the moment.
No, and the thing too is like for me, like I've always had respect for Ye's playstyle, and he's such a talented player. But you know, kind of touching on what Seal was saying, like the consistency of your playstyle is extremely important. From like the transition from online play to LAN play, and then as you get later in tournaments, like you have to continue to apply that pressure, play the same way. So you know, if Ye can go off and do his thing and kind of continue to do that, and the team feeds off of him, I mean, they're going to be one of the best teams in this tournament. Now, if they do have moments where, you know, play styles differ, or they maybe respect a different team too much and try and adapt their own games, you know, a little bit too differently to the opponent, I think that they may get thrown off a little bit. But ultimately, they have so much firepower, so much skill and experience on that team that, you know, with that Ye element and everything like that, I think that, you know, they can try and pop off a little bit, and the momentum is going to be very key for that team.
I got a question to ask though about Envy, because obviously for a lot of these teams, we saw them in Masters and they've been taking a break, right? Doing things behind the scenes for sure, but not playing in tournaments, not giving us those VODs, and not giving their opponents those VODs to look over. I have to ask, a team like Envy, do you see these guys hard leaning into a new meta, moving to try and reinvent themselves, like with the likes of Fracture coming in? Or do you think these guys are just bread and butter? They know, like, hey, yeah, just stick him on a jet, he knows what he's doing, and run around the map dueling like that. How do you feel? How do you feel like they're going to change coming into this, or are they?
I felt that Envy for a long time, even before they had Ye, when they were still using Mummy as an opper. I felt like they had a pretty good mixture of good, like they were proactive around the map. They weren't like always reactive. They had good like setups, good traps, good baits. They were like pretty all around, and they had very good performance out of, you know, at least 3 of their players at any given time. I think now with the inclusion of Ye, I feel like their consistency is going to be higher. Their ceiling is going to be higher. I don't think that we're going to necessarily see them trying to like reinvent the wheel, so to speak. I'd probably see them doing what works for them and then having their fallback plan. So if they're going out guns blazing, confidence, everything, I feel like they're just going to keep to that if they're going to be able to bully against other teams. But if they're not bullying other teams, they have their fallback plan. And I think that's what makes them such a strong, well-rounded team. However, I feel like if we're talking about consistency, I don't think we should be looking at like Ye, for example. I feel like the real key is going to be if Vic is able to kind of do what he does best. So he is the, you know, the flex player, the secondary duelist. If he's feeling it and they're, you know, taking all the space and they're feeling confident, they're going to be, you know, the aggressive Envy that's, you know, giving no respect to anybody. But then if he's not feeling it, if he's missing some shots, I feel like that's when we see the plan B, plan C type Envy coming out.
Yeah, and I'm really curious to see like where this whole fracture thing comes into play too, because it's kind of timely when now fracture is able to be played, and like even in NA now in some of these like tier 2 tournaments, like you're not really seeing that many teams play it. Like you're seeing a lot of teams like permabanned and stuff like that. So practice has also been fairly limited in general, I guess, on that map. So I'm curious to see like how the meta develops on that map. But if you have teams that maybe from different regions have been hard practicing that map and they want to hard pick that on teams that maybe are gambling, not first banning it, I mean, it could become an issue on some of these teams that maybe haven't practiced it as much. But I feel like in some of these cases, like, you know, firepower might end up just overtaking it, but it could become some sort of an issue like deep down the line, even in the grand finals of a tournament when you have BO5, you know, like you're pretty much going to play everything.
I feel like it's one of those upset potential maps. I feel like it's when Icebox came out a year ago, I said the exact same thing about Icebox that I'll say about Fracture. It's one of those maps where I feel like underdogs will seek it out to get an edge on, you know, the overdogs. Because if you're, you know, that you're winning like your Ascent or your Haven or, you know, give it any map 80% of the time, and then suddenly this brand new map comes out, you've never been tested in tourney play, you have no idea what to expect from this team that you should just batter on another map. You know, picking fracture and like, you know, knowing that you're going to go into the tournament with like a pretty strong like game plan on it, it might not be a bad shout. Having said that, I feel like none of the teams that are like overdog teams that don't have a permaban or didn't have one in Berlin or previously, I feel like Fracture might be the map that they choose to ban against lesser teams, and at the beginning at the very least. Maybe it's like one of the sleeper picks that they might reveal later on, but I feel like there's no chance. There's no way.
Yeah. Opening game versus a team from a region you're not really expecting a lot of. Keatstar and X10, why run the risk, right? And I think that's the second you adapt to your opponent's play, right, you're giving them a little bit too much respect maybe in some of these opening games especially. I gotta ask, so we're unanimous. Ascend and Envy make it out of Group A. It's pretty much written in stone. The question I'll have, and Steele, I'll start with you because you have a unique perspective on this, having played at Masters against both of these teams. Who's taking the top road? Who's going through the upper bracket? And who's just barely scraping by?
So I was actually eyeing Ascend to take it, and it's not because I think like they're necessarily better than Envy, or like, you know, if other circumstances came around, like I feel like Envy could beat them just as much as Ascend can beat Envy. I feel like it's one of those things where it's just like, I don't know. It's like one of those gut feelings almost, where it's like I've played them both. We beat Ascend, Envy beat us. I feel like Envy is like a really strong overall team, probably even stronger than Ascend in most cases. I just feel like it's one of those matchups where, you know, Envy's gonna like start too slow, and then Ascend's just gonna be like, "Yo, what's up? Like we're coming with all of our, you know, we're cNed and friends. We're coming out swinging. We're gonna be shouting at you, and it's gonna be a good time." And Envy might be a little bit quiet. It's no shot at Envy or anything like that, because I think like, you know, if this happens, I feel like Envy comes back swinging, you know, later in the tournament if they match up again, and then Envy might take that one, for example. So I put Ascend on top for the top seed though, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I would probably choose Envy, to be honest, just because it's so early in the tournament. Like they can come out swinging, you know. Like I think that, you know, later on in the tournament, I probably have a little bit more questions how their like play style is gonna go. But I think early on in the tournament, like they play them second match, like just try and win out the group. You know, like they could just like start off really strong, but I would not be upset if, you know, Ascend ended up being the first seed there too, because I think they're a very good team as well, and it's going to be like a very good matchup in my opinion. It's just there's really no one else in the group, so it's going to be like a toss-up between those two.
Yeah, well, one of the storylines for me of Ascend as well is like cNed came into the previous event super hyped up, right? Everybody's talking about he's the best in the world. You had teams, some North American teams, some CIS teams, all these guys who were scrimming them and saying like, oh wow, you know, they're actually pretty legit. cNed's just unbelievable. And I think at Masters he did well. Let's not say that. But compared to how he feels in EMEA, like he's in charge of the game from start to finish, regardless of whether you're against a team like Gambit or an unnamed team. He just looks the same. And when it was at Masters, I didn't feel that same cNed spark that I do in EMEA. I feel like he's not going to be happy with the performance he put forward there, purely on a scale of 1 to cNed. He wasn't quite at the top of the scale, but this time around, a little bit of extra motivation for him to really show up and, again, from the gates, just be looking to take names, take heads, and what better way than in a second game versus Envy. Well, let's put a pin in that one. Let's close up Group A there. So we got a few more to go through. And looking down at Group B, we've got Crew Esports, Team Liquid, Sentinels, and FURIA. Now, look, Crew are easily going to top this group, so we don't even need to talk about that. Let's look at really. Who are we looking at in this? fRoD, let's start with yourself. Group B, who's making it out?
Yeah, I mean, in my opinion, this is gonna be Sentinels and Liquid straight up. So it's gonna be almost like how Group A was. Like, it's not gonna be that tough. Now, will FURIA, which was a team that got hot in the the South American like LCQ, if they're gonna be able to make some noise, I'm not too sure, to be honest. I mean, these are the best, like some of the best teams in the world when it comes to Sentinels and Liquid. So I'm just not sure. I mean, this is also like a tough group in the sense that there's like Crew has been to all these events, but I've not seen them get better. FURIA, maybe they can improve, but we'll see. It'll be like their kind of big showing at some of these events. But Sentinels, they're just really freaking good, and Liquid, same thing, man.
So I got a super spicy hot take.
Okay.
And so I put down that Liquid would take the top seed out of this group. I'm just thinking that they've looked pretty strong in the LCQ. They've looked pretty strong with their new addition of, Scream's brother. And yeah, we don't even give him a name. We just call him Scream's brother here. So they've looked really strong.
Respect on Navera. Come on.
I feel like they have some like pretty cool things going on for like the way that they approach maps, for their way that they approach compositions. I feel like they really just dropped the ball around the time of like the Masters Berlin, but I feel like they're just like, getting back on their feet and standing strong. Now, the spicy take that I was going to put was that I feel like Sentinels could be one of two things. Very, very strong coming into this because they know that they messed up badly at Masters Berlin. It felt like maybe they took the foot off the gas because they were just like beating everyone in North America so handedly that they're just like, yeah, we don't have to like put as much time in, or we don't have to like keep up with the meta. Maybe we don't have to drop Phoenix or Sky, things like that. Maybe they got a little complacent. Maybe they, whatever the case may be, we saw them drop out in the quarterfinals. They lost to Envy in the quarterfinals of Berlin. And they also were kind of like having struggles against G2 in the group stage. F4Q took a map off them. So I'm wondering, with everything going on, how have they bounced back from that? It's either that they said, you know what, we can't let this we can't have another poor performance like this, and we need to like really hammer it down, get back to practice, make sure that we're, talking about agent composition, how we want to approach maps, the inclusion of fracture, all these things, and actually getting back to practice, which I think they have been doing. Or they're going to be still kind of in the, well, Stream's doing well, and maybe they haven't been keeping up, and maybe they underestimate Crew. When we played Crew in practice in Berlin, they were actually insane. Like, they were pretty nutty.
Okay.
And I think they had some pretty good like individual mappers. I know that I'm pretty sure they lost in group stage at Berlin, but they had some maps where they put up a fight, or they even took maps off of like pretty good teams. I feel like if you sleep on Crew, I feel like they're going to come out swinging, especially Nags with his op. I feel like there is a world, albeit maybe not a big world. I feel like if Sentinels hasn't woken up yet and they went to sleep, which I don't think they would because it's champions, but I think there is a world where Crew could come out with the second seed.
Okay. Yeah, I'm just looking now. I knew something felt fishy about that. Crew did make it through. I think they were the only team like from that region to make it through, but obviously they had Zeta and Keedstars in their group as well. And then they went down to G2 in Masters. But by all stretches of the imagination, they played pretty terribly in officials, that is. And I think that's something that I think surprised me a lot when it came to Masters, was especially how like LATAM teams, Brazilian teams, like these guys in CS, oh man, you're gonna have a really, really tough time against them. But it seems like they just haven't made any sort of mark on the international scene so far. I'm curious, Steele, do you have any opinions on maybe what's holding them back at this stage?
I'm not really sure what's holding them back at the stage. Maybe it's that like, I don't know. Like in CS, like the Brazilian region's pretty strong. You have like, at one point in time, at least like 3 teams that were in the top 15, top 20 from that region. Maybe it's that like all those players are still in Counter-Strike, and maybe, you know, they haven't transitioned to Valorant. Maybe, you know, they're Counter-Strike's still a bigger game. I don't want to like start making things up because I honestly don't know.
Yeah, that's sweet.
What
That's sweet.
what I do know is that I feel like we're still looking at, if we're looking at the strengths of the regions, it's still EMEA, NA, and Vision Strikers. Vision Strikers being a region of their own. I feel like that's what it is though. And then like you kind of have like other regions putting up teams that could take a series here or there, or take a map here or there. But overall, like we're not expecting them to go deep in the tournament. Like they have upset potential for sure. It's not like they're like completely gonna just get walked over or anything like that, but they could they definitely are gonna put up a fight, a lot of them. So to answer your question, I have no idea.
No, and the thing is that some of these teams like Crew, for example, they scrim against a lot of NA teams, so they get good practice, which was a problem in a lot of those regions. I mean, it is because they're playing against, you know, it'd be better than just playing within their same region, which was a problem in the past. We're not having as much to practice against. You know, here at least they're able to play different regions, probably, you know, pretty bad ping, but I'm pretty sure we play them on like Atlanta servers when we scrim them in the past, which is like very strange. But like they're a good team, so I definitely agree with that. Like they have that kind of upset potential if you sleep on them, because like Crew does, like they play in all the tournaments. My opinion is that they got to like maybe get more of the times on the meta and stuff like that. Like they have good skill, they just got to maybe like change some of the agents that they play with, or just how they play some of the agents. But yeah, if a team sleeps on them, it could definitely be possible.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things that's important to mention. You know, when you compare some of these teams and you're like, oh, look, yeah, against the second best team in the world, they only got 7 rounds. Haha, noobs. It's like, come on, you know, they're not playing with controllers. They know what's going on. If you give them a chance, if you really take your foot off the gas. And I think that's why we're talking about Sentinels maybe going out of Group B, which is a surprising narrative that I'm very, very happy to give some airtime to. Looking at the other team in the group, though, at FURIA, what are our opinions on these guys coming in? As I mean, this is going to be a team that, for the international audience, I think they're just going to put them in that same old group of like, oh, it's another Brazilian team in Valorant. They're going to go out in groups, you know? But do we think they maybe have the chance to upset the likes of a weakened Sentinels?
Yeah, I mean, if they're not being respected, I think that it can happen. I mean, this is a team that was really hot in the South American LCQ. You know, they're beating a lot of the teams in their region, getting hot. So I definitely think it's possible, especially with some of the players they got there.
How long has Zan been playing? This guy's been around a long time, right?
He was playing CSGO for a while, yeah. I feel like when it comes to FURIA, I feel like, and I could be completely wrong about this, but I feel like they're maybe the 3rd best Brazilian team. And as I just said, like I feel like Brazil as a region in this game isn't like super, like nearly as strong as they were in Counter-Strike. I feel like Sentinels is going to walk over FURIA at the start. I don't know why, but like, I don't know. I was like looking at FURIA's results against the other like best teams, so cNed and Havon Liberty, because Havon Liberty were in Berlin as well, and it just wasn't looking impressive. So unless they've changed something that I'm not aware about, I feel like they're the group that everyone looks at. It's like, okay, they have no chance.
Okay, so
I got a lot of love for that comment, by the way. So
yeah, oh yeah, you're gonna get so many DMs, and they're all gonna be positive. It's all good. Don't worry about it.
My DMs are open, everyone.
Yeah, flood them now. Let them know what you think, what your opinion is, and if you want them to come visit your country. So Group B, all tied up there. We know roughly who we're looking at coming out. Team Liquid, a Sentinels maybe, but is it? Sorry, Steel, I'm gonna have to get confirmation. Is it FURIA or Crew you see coming out ahead of Sentinels?
I see. Crew coming ahead of Sentinels. I think Crew is. Yeah, I think so. Crew is a team that I think, from like all the regions that you don't really like credit for being like putting out good teams, I feel like they are like a sleeper team that I think people are going to not really give the credit to, or like going to be like, oh, this should be a cakewalk. Like, who are these guys? And then they're just going to smack you in the face and you're going to be like, oh, well, what have I done? Like, I haven't prepared for this.
All right. I mean, yeah, I think I'm in that boat as well. I'm in the underestimating them, assuming they'll get slapped out of the group, but I'm willing to be upset. I'm willing to see that change around. There's nothing I'd love more than see another region step it up there, but not in their opening game. They can leave Team Liquid alone. Save it for the Sentinels lower bracket.
Before we head into Group C, it's time for our bold predictions presented by DJ Esports. And I got with me my friend Jordan Nothing Gilbert here. How you doing, Jordan?
Doing lovely. Thank you for having me here. Excited to watch some champions.
Oh, yeah. All right, so let's get right into it, man. So, like, for me, one of these, like, really first games that we're seeing right now, this Cloud9 Blue and Fnatic game. What do you think about that as far as, like, the matchup and everything like that?
Yeah, this one's cool. Me and you were just talking before, and I kind of agree. Like, it's maybe one of the harder ones to call in this initial group stage, just because, most people look at this bracket and see there's some lopsided games here, and from a outside perspective. But this is one of those ones that I think is close. But personally, I do think Cloud9 Blue is going to take this one. I think Fnatic initially made this splash onto the scene before Iceland and the first VCT back then, and I just haven't seen a lot to give me a lot of confidence in them. I saw them play Liquid online recently. I think Liquid kind of handled them pretty easy 2-0, 13-6, 13-something. I forget the other, overwhelmed pretty easily. And Cloud9 Blue really impressed me at LCQ. They seem like they have a lot of infrastructure. Vanity is kind of like a wise ass and stuff in the way he talks, but it seems like he's backing it up with a lot of effort and a lot of intention with the way they're approaching the game. So I got confidence in C9 Blue coming to that game.
Yeah, me too, man. I mean, honestly, like, even if Fnatic, they might, come into this game, like, coming in hot. Maybe they do a little bit of anti-stratting, which I think might be a little bit of their downfall, like trying to read too much into a team. The advantage, in my opinion, that Cloud9 had is that they have a lot of different, like, strategies, like a diverse agent pool, so much talent on that team. Like, it's a very difficult team to read. Based on that, it's one of these things that I just really think that, Cloud9 is going to take it and, wind up, in this case, like, let's put a 500 DJT on it. Look, and the expected return. Let's see.
Make it that easy, buddy.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm hoping, like, one thing I've always known with Boaster is he likes to get creative and he likes to think outside the box. I remember when he was one of the first guys, I think, to use Breach to, like, fault line clear, shower control, and bind or something. Use some unique, like, double, triple controller type stuff. I think I remember seeing. So, hopefully we have a good game. Who do you got next on the docket, Danny?
Yeah, so the next one for me, let me pull this one up really quick. I mean, honestly, the Vision Strikers and Full Sense game, that one to me is going to be one of, like, the more impressive ones. For me, the reason why I like this one is because Full Sense has done such a good job in their LCQ run, beating some of Vision Strikers' rivals like Damwon and New Turn. So, if they're kind of riding that high and they're going into this tournament, it could be a very good matchup. And just even, like, based on the odds, man, like, what do you think about that? Like 5-1 odds almost for Full Sense.
Yeah. Obviously, the odds can shift from when we record this, but they should be relatively the same. And I just think, right when you said that earlier, it immediately hit me. I was like, actually, that's a great point. You see, if you're looking for upset potential for, like, a bet to just sprinkle something on there, that's a good one to take because there's actual potential. You look at, maybe like the Sentinels game or the Envy game, which we can get into in a second, which might be just locks on the reverse side of things where we don't think there's much upset potential. So that's a good due diligence there, Mr. Montanter.
Yes, sir. I mean, we gotta do what we gotta do here. All right, and then so the last game, like you were saying too, like when it comes to locks, this first round, it's gonna be a lot of, like, these top seeds coming into these LCQ games. Where do you think, like, we have, like, a pretty good lock here right now?
Yeah, I'm like an Envy over X10. I remember the boys at X10, Patty Fan, if I remember, was kind of popping off and showed me some good stuff. But when I look at this matchup, I just feel like Envy is going to come out with, like, they just look like the armored boss versus the unkitted little NPC right here. Just to be honest, that's just the feeling I get when I watch or look at this matchup from an outside perspective. Envy's look strong. I think they're one of those teams in NA that you hear the other practice partners say, like, they're putting in, like, a little bit more of that, like, youthful effort. Maybe teams like Sentinels were coasting at last Berlin event, but that's a whole nother conversation. But I think Envy's going to come out swinging, and I think they're a lock for me against.
Yeah, for sure, man. I mean, Envy is like that raid boss. They got that VIP armor, and X10's got, like, that low buy. It's kind of one of these things. Like, Envy's really got to put in that work. But I feel like it's just Envy all the way, man. Especially in this first matchup, they're going to be riding high, I think. So put the last 500 on them. May not be the biggest return, but at the end of the day, some money is better than no money, right?
Profits, baby. We're making profits.
Well, now let's move on to Group C. But before we do, I have to remind you the Curveball is presented to you by DJ Esports. The first 10 players to reach 60,000 DJT in their DJE wallet will win 50 XRP. So act fast. Use promo code DJ5050, deposit 50, and get 50 USDT back. Limited to the first 20 people. Sign up now so that you don't miss out. So on to the Champions Group. Champions Group C, that is. The group of champions with Gambit Esports set to take the top of it nice and easy. But who's going to be second place? Team Secret, Vikings, or Crazy Raccoon? Well, I'm going to start here. Team Secret. We haven't got to see these guys play at all. They've only played regionally. They missed out on Masters due to visa complications. When we talk about motivation coming into an event and say some of the teams that previously might have let their foot off the gas, I think Team Secret have got to be the exact opposite fRoD.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, these are one of those teams that they've been probably dying to just showcase their abilities out there. And being a newer team, understanding that you have like a clear-cut like champion in your team, like someone that's like obviously going to take the #1, like these all other 3 teams, Vikings, Secret, and Crazy Raccoons, like they're all going to be fighting for this. Now, I think Crazy Raccoons might be able to pull something out. I mean, I kind of like the way that they have played before too, but again, it could be a toss-up between all of these teams because it's going to get very tight in that first game. And then, I mean, really, Gambit is just going to, I think, maul through everyone in the group, unfortunately, and it's just going to be a bloodbath for that second seed.
So yeah, Team Secret coming in with a pretty tough opening match, though. I mean, still, whatever we talk about them being fired up, being ready to go, they're up against the defending champions, and their odds don't look too good to start out with.
Yeah, I feel like it's, again, like one of those things where you're talking about who's going to win the group and you're talking about everyone else. I feel like Gambit's the clear favorite here, despite, and we can talk about Crazy Raccoons in a little bit, but, last time Gambit played them, they, went like 13-1, 13-1. And then like the second time, the rematch, Crazy Raccoons actually pushed them close 13-10 on the on one of the maps. It might have been Bind. I don't really remember. But yeah, I mean, when it comes to Team Secret or any other group any other team in the group, or even like any other team in the tournament, I feel like very few are going to get past Gambit. So locking Gambit in as the #1 seed, I feel like is a no-brainer. And then when we look at Team Secret, yeah, you're going to look at them being like, let down and feeling like really crappy about missing out on Masters 3 Berlin due to visa issues. Now they're like actually in Berlin and they're here for champs. They're playing for 2 tournaments in one, basically. So I feel like they are going to try to like push through and make their, final hurrah here.
Yeah, they will have a tough run, though. Obviously, if you lose to Gambit, you're having to make those 2 back-to-back wins in the elimination side of things. And with it being their first event as well on a big stage like this, and we talk about this team being from Southeast Asia, we're taking a peruse over like even just the kind of money that they would be earning in the CSGO tournaments when they were playing for years and years and years. And it doesn't come close to what they're dealing with now. And I think that's going to be, we talked about pressure already. A lot of these players have actually had their run of playing on a stage, playing at a live event. And now I think for Team Secret, I think it might have been like their first real like international live event. And then like Masters would have been. So Champions will be, which is a really big hurdle, but maybe it'll light a fire under them. When we look down below, we've got Vikings versus Crazy Raccoon. And there is no doubt about it that the Japanese teams last time around, they didn't really deliver. I think everybody had high expectations, high hopes. And yeah, they were not met, especially you've already touched on Steel, that opening game versus Gambit with 13 ones back-to-back. Sure, that's acceptable versus Gambit. And they improved going deeper into the tournament. And the second time they played them, even taking them to OT on one of the maps. So is this something that we can maybe read into and say, you know what, Crazy Raccoon, they had a hiccup, but now they're back for vengeance?
I think this comes back to the conversation we had about consistency and then as well as skill, floor, and ceilings. I just feel like when we see that you could have such varying results where you can go like get smashed 13-1 back-to-back in the BO3 and then come back and push. Was it overtime? If you say it's overtime, I believe
Icebox,
you.
Yeah.
Pushing them to overtime. And, Icebox against Gambit, it's pretty good. So I feel like in those types of situations, you're looking at a team that has potential to, win some kind of like underdog matches, but you also have them the potential to lose to teams that they shouldn't lose to. So maybe that's an issue with the protocols. Maybe that's an issue with consistency with their gameplay. Maybe it's consistency with their calling. Like, you don't really know until like you really study a team what the issue is, why you have such high highs and such low lows. But I feel like, yeah, I feel like it's not their tournament. I feel like they're not going to have a good time this time around as well. And, the same thing as last time. They're going to have like a pop off map here or there, but overall it's going to be pretty disappointing from them.
Yeah, and my thing is, like, when you're a team that may not have like the highest skill ceiling, you have to rely heavily on strategies. And strategies, you either have to have like a really good mind for it, a bunch of players in the team, coaches that can kind of come up with these strategies, or you have to go the other route, which is you have to lose to teams to know how to beat them and improve on them. But this is a tournament where you don't have opportunities to lose and then kind of rebound off of it, and you're not going to really get like that kind of experience against some of these teams to be able to kind of figure out what works for you against them. So I think it's going to be one of these situations that maybe they get stronger as the BO3 goes along, but I mean, it's never going to really catch up or be fast enough potentially to take them over the top, because especially in my opinion against a team like Gambit, this is one of those teams that they have such a unique play style that if you don't like study them or play against them often, you never really know how to beat them or what it's going to take to beat them. So it's going to be really hard for some of these teams getting their kind of first experience against some of these teams at like on a big stage.
Speaking of that, actually, Team Vikings saw these guys at Reykjavik. Didn't get to see them. They lost around to Haven Liberty when we looked at their run through, and then Keed Stars to make it to Berlin. This time around, coming back to try and prove themselves, they did not have an easy run through Reykjavik. They lost to Sentinels and Liquid. I think those are pretty acceptable. Now, they got slapped around, sure, but at the time as well, those teams were on top of their game. I feel like realistically, we can give them a little bit of a pass. For me, I think they're a team that can steal that second spot. Again, I don't see anybody in this group beating Gambit, but I'm curious to see what you guys feel. fRoD, Vikings, do they have a shot?
Yeah, I mean, being one of the strongest teams from that region, I would think so. Just given the fact that they have the ability to, like, all the experience, they've been consistently doing well within their region. I think that they do have a chance. It's just, no one stands a chance against Gambit, so it's going to be pretty much how they go against themselves. Vikings, I think, will take that Crazy Raccoons game, and then it's pretty much going to have to be, like, them hopefully, taking it on the chin against Gambit and then being able to rebound off of that. Because the second seed is going to have to bounce back from a victory or from a loss. And then the other team that they're playing against is going to be one that is going to, win a game, like lose a game, obviously, then win a game and then go in hot. So momentum is going to be very key for that second place decider game. So I almost favor the teams that lose in the first round simply because they could win the second game and almost take the third game. Because if Gambit just tears you up in that second game, they might just like rip your mental for the rest of the tournament.
I really want to delve into this, though. Steele, we haven't seen these guys play for 3 months in an official. Vikings have been off the radar, obviously making it through off the points that they accrued throughout the year. Now, how you talked earlier about how Valorant is a game that requires a lot of innovation, right? Your agent comps, the maps that are being put in, like the micro adjustments to the agents, the economy, all that sort of stuff. 3 months without scrims. I'll give you a little bit of context. We spoke to some of the Brazilian
scrims
teams.
Or matches?
Sorry. Without matches, without officials.
Okay.
And when we talk about scrims, within the Brazilian region, we had a couple interviews with a few different coaches from over there. And they said that it's very, very hard to organize like top quality scrims within Brazil because teams just cancel. They don't show up. Like it's a very unprofessional environment outside.
Well, it's very North America of them then.
Like he was saying, like there's maybe 4 teams that you'll get consistent scrims against, and anyone else you go for, it's like, yeah, book 6 scrims, get 2. It's a pretty terrible practice regime. I gotta wonder, man, if that's what they've been dealing with. They're scrimming NA teams on 150 ping. Like, that's surely got to have a big impact when it comes to now playing on such a high pressure stage and officials and all that sort of stuff coming into it.
Yeah, I think like if that is the actual case, and I don't know much about it, but that would play into like my comment before about, if all your best teams and players are still in Counter-Strike from your region and they haven't brought the culture of, professionalism and, structure and how practice should be run and handled, then obviously it's going to have an impact on, when it trickles down. Maybe it's something to do with infrastructure's not there. Maybe it's something that, people coming up into playing esports still choose, other game over Valorant. So I don't know. We can't really talk about what, like, we can't speculate as to like what their practice has actually been like. If they're trying to like book 6 and actually get 2, maybe that 2 is still 2 more than what another team's able to get, because looking at North America, for example, there's roster shuffles happening. You have these teams playing in these NSG tournaments that are smaller tournaments, but you're seeing like new rosters coming out. You're seeing pug rosters, you're seeing the tier 2 teams coming out, but you don't see like you don't see the Sentinels, the Envy, and the Cloud9s playing in that either. So we haven't really seen, an official match from Sentinels since Berlin. You haven't seen the same thing from Envy since Berlin, and then Cloud9, you've only seen them recently because they played through the LCQ. So having a break, it doesn't necessarily mean one or the other. One thing it could mean is like, one thing I know is every time you play just like ranked, and then you're like, oh, you're just begging for scrims, and you play scrims, and then you're begging for an official match, and you play official matches, and you're just begging for a LAN tournament and going to like a stage and stuff like that. So I feel like when you're just like, you're going through this drought basically of just not being able to play official matches, and you're barely able to get any scrims, like when you get here, everything's just like, this is so much better. Like everyone just like so like pumped up and feeling it. So I don't know. It's a different perspective to look at it, I guess. I feel like they're still not going to do well, but that's besides the point. I feel like the other teams in their group, I feel like it's going to go Gambit first. And then I think Secret's going to be the second team that comes out. They're going to lose to Gambit in the opening match, and then they're going to win through the elimination match and the decider match. And it's not about anything about Vikings versus, Crazy Raccoons versus Team Secret. I feel like if you are on a team that has made it to champions, you've obviously done something right, and you've obviously got teams and players that are really talented and skilled. And at the end of the day, it's 4 groups where 2 teams per group make it out. You're either good enough to make it out, or you're not, or you happen to be good enough on that day. And I feel like this isn't their time right now, and maybe it's their time next time type of thing. But I feel like it's going to be Team Secret. Like they're also just as hungry, if not more hungry, after the whole visa situation last time.
Would
Yeah,
you
because
agree,
they got
Frodd?
I mean, they got like their opportunity denied. So I mean, for them, they just want to show out and just show their ability to play. And to touch on like what we were talking about just previously, like I think it's a real thing, and this has been going on forever when it comes to like the regions, for example, like teams from Brazil, for example, their practice, and it like here in NA, we try and focus, for example, on quality over quantity, because it's hard to get good scrims, I guess, because of the consistency and stuff. I think in South America and even regions like Japan, like quantity matters for those teams, because they're not able to get a large amount of practice in. Like even if they can obviously get quality, and I'm sure they care about that, at the same time it's like consistency and quantity as well that matters to some of these teams, because if they can't play 25, 30, 40 scrims a week, I mean eventually it kind of drops off. And really a lot of these teams, they kind of have to resort to different methods of practice. Maybe they have to get in the lab more. So if a lot of these teams are getting in the lab and preparing some strategies, especially now with Fracture involved, you never know what can happen. But I mean, I think practice plays a really big factor in how some of these regions are able to strengthen themselves. And in some cases, it's the regions that are not able to get like a good amount of practice. And for example, like Crew, they're more Central America in some way, so they can play North America, whereas teams from Brazil, they can't. So, like I said, quality of practice does affect them, but they're also not able to get quantity, which, could be a big problem in the long run.
Yeah, sounds
Are-
like a
are we
pretty
just-
terrible situation.
Are we just taking their word for it as well, like about them saying like, oh, the quality of practice is bad? Because I feel like you need to have kind of like a reference point for what good quality is, and then compare that to the bad quality practice. So like when I go and I play against certain teams from other regions, when we were in Berlin for Masters 3, like I could instantly tell like, wow, like we never got this from, other teams in North America. And when we reflect on the practice we have in North America, we could say, okay, well, these teams are bad practice, like blacklist them almost. And then these other teams that you don't see going like super far in any of these like open qualifiers or close qualifiers. These are actually the best practice because they actually, even if they're not as good individually and individually skilled, they're still like trying hard and they're making you like earn every round, and they're like pushing you to your limits. Like, oh, like I never noticed that we had this hole here, because they're like trying really hard. So I mean, right here we're kind of like just speculating, and we're kind of taking their word for it, so to speak. So I believe them that the practice is bad because I see how bad it is in North America, but I think there's other ways to get around it as well. And it doesn't really, just to like touch on fRoD's point, I'm not sure if it is just about quantity. I think there's times where you need just reps and go for reps and reps and reps. But I think it also comes down to like, the saying perfect practice makes, it's not practice makes perfect, it's perfect practice makes perfect. So when you're looking at like the quality, there's still stuff that you can do within yourselves to make sure that you're doing the best you can do. And even if you're not getting a lot of practice partners, and then on top of that, the practice partners are like, not great players or great teams, you can still focus inwards on yourself. Make sure that, just because you are just like smashing through them, you're not like chasing frags and chasing ecos and, getting really complacent on the post plants and retakes, like making sure that you're waiting for your teammates and you're doing everything step by step and you're not getting ahead of yourselves. I feel like there's a way that you can get around poor quality of practice. It just comes down to how disciplined you really are and how badly you want it to, work.
Yeah, it's gonna be a lot of that like outside of the actual game work that they got to put in. Like I've even like have talked to like guys like Solo in the past, because like these guys are like old school from like the Korean region. I mean, they would do like 3v2 scrims, like play amongst themselves, like try and take bomb site B on Dust 2, like in house. Yeah, because it's really hard. And now if you have a coach that has like decent skill, maybe you could run 3v3 execs and stuff like that just to kind of improve some practice. But they're gonna have to get creative there if quality and quantity is bad in their regions. And a lot of these teams, they're paid professionals, they have a really good coaching staff, a lot of players that have been pros in other games and stuff. If they put in that extra effort, I think it'll show there, because Valorant's a game that these little intricacies and all these abilities and everything, like it does have a big factor in the actual outcome of a game if used properly. So I do think that it'd be pretty cool to kind of see some of these teams like invent some different strategies, and excited to see that too.
You know what? I'm excited to bring an end to us agreeing on things, because we're about to move on to Group D. Now, so far, for the most part, there's been a few, I could see this if, ands, or buts. But now it's time to really get into it. The Group of Death: Vision Strikers, Fnatic, Cloud9 Blue, and Full Sense, who've got to be absolutely bricking it. This is a stacked group, and I'm just going to throw it open to the floor. Still, let's start with yourself. Who's making it out, man?
Okay, well, since we spent a lot of words talking about who's going to make it out of Group C, let's just make it really quick, short and simple. I actually have Cloud9 losing to Vision Strikers in the winners thing, and then having Vision Strikers come out in the first seed. And then I felt like Cloud9 was going to beat Fnatic in their opening game, and then drop down to the decider match. I feel like Cloud9 is going to beat Fnatic twice, basically, and then get the second seed. And then Full Sense is going to not be making any sense on the way out of this tournament.
Oh, you're not having faith in the underdog story. I mean, if they make it out of this group, man, it's going to break the internet. I don't know. Like, I feel bad for these guys. They're getting on a flight and they're like, shit, we're flying home in 3 days. Like, this is, it's got to be pretty tough.
I mean, you never know with these guys, man. Like, these guys, they won the APAC LCQ, and they played against teams that Vision Strikers has played against in the past, like Damwon and others. And I'm not saying that they can't beat them, but you never know. Like I guess in my way, like my standpoint is like you should never write off fully a team. Like you always got to give them their respect. So you kind of give them their respect, but you plow them at the same time. You just don't think that they're not going to show up, but you have to at least respect them that they're going to go there and try hard. But as long as Vision Strikers like stays true to their game, I don't see there being a problem. But I mean, you never know. Like Full Sense, like they can be something that turns up in this tournament. But I have to agree with Steel there. Like it's just the way that the bracket almost plays out. Like C9 is gonna beat Fnatic in my opinion they might end up losing to Vision Strikers, and if it's a rematch, I'm not really seeing it because I like this new C9 team. I've always been a fan of Zyppan. Like I've always kind of said that when he transitioned into this game that he was going to be one of those like rising stars. Now that they have Vanity, they kind of adjusted like some of the agents that some of the players are playing. Like Leaf is unlocked, Zeppa's unlocked. Like these are like true talents in our scene, and if they're being utilized properly, I mean, it's going to be tough to like beat these guys. It's just going to see how consistent they can be throughout the whole entire tournament. But I think that they are a team that's kind of going to get slept on a little bit because everyone's going to talk about Sentinels and Envy from our region. But I think C9 is one of those teams that they've just been riding on a high, especially with some of these adjustments. And I think they're going to do really, really well here too. I mean, I think they're going to win the group in my opinion. But I could definitely see a world where Vision Strikers beats them and takes the group because Vision Strikers is one of the best teams out there, but I got to respect C9 and what they bring to the table.
Having played, I haven't played against Cloud9, but I think they subscribe to the mantra trolling is a way of life, and I think that is their kind of like double-edged sword, is that I feel like when we see them just completely running through teams at LCQ, it's because they have that really high, but I feel like, you know, the first like 2 matches that they played in the LCQ, they were looking really like struggling, and it was just overall just pretty grief. So I think that, you know, having played against Vision Strikers as well, those guys were pretty good, and we would have seen them probably go the distance in Berlin if they didn't have to face off against Gambit in the first stage. In the quarterfinal, you know, single limb against Gambit, and then suddenly like you're not going deeper. I feel like Vision Strikers is one of those teams that they are actually like, they're not just like this one trick gimmick thing. They're pretty tough to play against, and I feel like Cloud9, like they definitely have the capacity to win the group, and even like, you know, dare I say even the whole tournament. But I feel like they also have a lot of their own like internal struggles where they do too many of these, you know, low-level rookie mistakes, these amateur mistakes, because they're, you know, chasing kills, or they're just getting like complacent or ahead of themselves, or doing something just overall dumb. And I feel like that's why they're not going to end up topping the group, but I do see them getting past Fnatic to get the second seed out of the group.
I mean, you talk about griefing as a mantra. Zap is playing a KO, so I guess that tells us everything we need to know. I'm excited to see.
Hey, I played KO. What are you trying to say?
I'm sorry. Listen,
it was pretty grief.
I mean, I'm kind of a low key. I have always been a fan of KO a little bit. I think it's kind of hard to fit in the meta, but if you have the players and certain things, like the way that 100 Thieves used it and we still use it, I thought it was perfect. Like the way you could like flex off of it in that given moment, I thought it could like spice that up a little bit. I think Zyppan kind of does the same thing too, because that's sort of like secondary duelist type role. Like KO's kit is really nice, and if you could like kind of hybrid himself and use all of his things in different ways, like that's always why I kind of feel like Zyppan is like the perfect fit for that role. And you know, I'm really curious. I really think that this Fnatic and Cloud9 game is going to be very, very good, because it's like that storyline of two like very good IGLs, potentially like bringing a lot of strategies to the mix. But I don't know, if C9 is able to control the tempo, play their game, it's going to be pretty easy for them, in my opinion, up until maybe Vision Strikers, which is one of those teams just like Gambit that they make you adapt to their style. Like they're not going to change. They have like their way of playing, and they're not going to adapt to it. Like they might get blown out, or they might dominate you, but they're not going to really, like, they're going to continue to adapt and create new strategies and things like that, but they're not going to be that counter strategy team, and they just play very smart and very disciplined. So if C9 kind of trolls a little bit too much, it might just, you know, get away from them. But if that trolliness gets to Vision Strikers, I mean, it could be a real big problem, because I'm not seeing Vision Strikers like able to overcome it if they're able, if you know, they end up like falling to the troll, which I don't know if they're really used to. Maybe F4Q kind of plays a little bit with that raise stuff, but it's kind of different level of troll with the judge and things like that go on here. So I'm really curious to see how some of the teams are going to see the NA troll come out, you know?
I mean, look, there's no doubt when Zap is on the server, he's going to show up. Same for Leaf, right? But one player who there is a little bit of doubt around whether he'll show up at all to the stage, Lakia. We're going to see more of this guy this time around. I mean, he's super hyped up. He got to play one map, and it was, what, a 13-2 loss? And, like, yeah, I'm not even going to... You don't even need to look at that man's stats. They got absolutely ruined in that. Come on. We have to get to see him this time around, surely.
I'll never understand a 6-man roster. I'll never understand it.
I'm with you, man. Yeah. I'm with you 100%. I honestly, Technically, Vision Strikers is 7-man, right? But
Yeah,
Okay, sorry.
things-
I'll never
things get
understand a
crazy.
roster with more than 5 people in a 5-man team game
Yeah, it's crazy, man. And I
in
know
esports.
one of the things I heard was genuinely that they picked him up so that they didn't have to play against him within Korea. It was like, yo, if we buy Lakia, we've got a champ spot. You know, we've got a master spot every year.
That's
I
the
mean,
NA thing to do. If
I-
you can't beat
I-
them, buy them.
but
It's actually pretty genius. So
Right?
I mean, go for it.
yeah, buy cNed. Just start. I don't know where the money's coming from in Vision Strikers. You can just
Just buy
up
every top
player in the
jet
region.
up and just sell them after like jet gets nerfed.
Or just start making a bunch of academy teams that they can't compete
Exactly.
in the same VCT as you or whatever. So
acquire
you know.
new turn, like you're good. You got everyone now. But yeah, like really, you know, I understand if we go on that narrative, right? Let's believe the rumors. They bought him so they don't have to deal with him. For Lakia, do you sign that contract if that's the kind of idea? Like, hey, you want to come live on the bench for the next 2-3 years, whatever the extent of his contract is, and that's it. You know, you're done, or maybe you're waiting for one of the players. I doubt it, man. I feel like they have to have something planned for him moving into like further into the future now that they've had a lot more time to develop. And because as a player who's just he has that vibe around him, like the cNed type hype. Everyone wants to see him. Everyone's talking about him. If Vision Strikers are playing, the dude got brought up in every death segment. He wasn't even playing. He played one map. It just seems very odd to me. I mean, I was still as a player yourself. Do you see, like, from Lakia's perspective, he's got to be getting itchy, right? He's like, I want to show the world what I can do. So for me, he's got to show up. He's got to turn up to the stage.
I will never pretend to know I know what's happening in the life
True.
of another pro when it comes down to their decision to, like, I have no idea what's happening in his life. Does he want to compete? Does he want to be on the main roster? Why is he not, like, why are they not putting him on the starting roster over the other people? You know, what are the details of his contract? Is he you know, does he need a job to make ends meet? He's not getting that other places. Like, you never know with someone what is their driving factor for, you know, the primary motivation for them choosing to do one thing or another. And then beyond that, we don't even know, you know, was he promised something that he didn't get? Like, we don't know these things. So we could say, like, oh, Locky is supposed to have more game time, or he's supposed to come out on, like, bind or something like that. And, you know, all the teams just banned bind because they don't want to play him, or they bought him because they don't want to play against him, or whatever the case may be. I don't ever really want to speculate, because I've seen people speculate about my situations in the past, and I've seen people speculate about other people I know their situations, and there's speculation of that person, and it's way off base. And I think that's probably one of the cringiest things to do. So I don't want to, like, indulge in that to a degree. All I know is, myself as a competitor, if I have the option to compete on a team or sit on a bench and come in as, like, a 6-man for a specific map or something like that, I know what option I'm going to take. However, circumstances might change where, you know, having stability and having, you know, a guaranteed income every month is, you know, the most important thing in my life. And right now, like, I've gone through NA, CS, when CS Source was, like, a dead game. I was paying more money going to LAN tournaments than I got out of prize money. Like, I went through all that as a competitor. But I could definitely see a world where I don't want to speculate on circumstances, and I don't really want to make that kind of comment, you know?
No, the thing too is, like, Vision Strikers, they have the MO of a team that they have, like, that 6-man, 7th-man kind of vibe to them. So, you know, if you're a free agent or a talented player on a team and you're going to go to, say, Vision Strikers, I think you're kind of under the understanding that you're going to be put into their system, and their system is that of, you know, more than 5 people on a team. You know, why they do things or why individuals do certain things. Yeah, I mean, it's just very all speculative. It's just, yeah, I mean, it's just different. We're all much older, you know, guys like even myself, like even used to, like, it cost us money to go to LANs and stuff like that, just to even have an opportunity. So for me, I'd always, you know, choose the angle of wanting to compete, because I feel like it's an opportunity to showcase yourself. But, you know, in some cases, you kind of have to, you don't have to worry about the money, but, you know, it's different nowadays. You never know where a player, if they need to provide for themselves or family. So you can never really speculate why. But a team like Vision Strikers, yeah, I think that they kind of love this 6-man stuff. I again don't really agree with it. I don't really have seen it work in the past, even in history. Like you just say like one thing's like it's just kind of strange to me. Like even the kind of notion that you want to like put this talented player who could be a star on any team, and you've kind of like isolated him as like a specialist on a specific map or something like that. That to me is kind of a little bit funky. I don't think we're there yet. This isn't Overwatch or something like that. I mean, I do respect metas in this game, but I also don't think that metas are like, I mean, I think players can adapt to metas and play different agents. It's not like, oh, different types of shooting in Overwatch, like a hit scan or whatever, you know? So I don't know. I think Lakia, if anything, maybe the dude should just be grinding all agents, not just Sova, for example. So if like he could just potentially ring for any map, any agent, because I feel like he's someone that should be, you know, showcased and playing. Because yeah, if he was playing on a different team, he could carry them for sure.
Yeah, I'll say one thing. There's no shot they picked him up to be a Sky main. There's no, you don't pick Lackey up. Just hey, we'll put him on Sky on this one map. Come on, no, that's
messed him up.
That's another thing. Like you don't know like whose decision was this? Was this the orgs? Was it the coaches? Was it the rest of the teams? Like when he came into the team, was he like told one thing and he's like buying into like a theory of a concept of the 6-man roster that rotating through, or 7-man roster rotating through maps or whatever, and then like it just like didn't play out that way, or they weren't feeling it in practice, or like, oh, I was supposed to come in for these 3 maps and now that's down to 1 map. Like we have no idea.
Yeah, it's like joining a 6-man roster is like joining a cult to me. You know, it can sound great on paper, but you're gonna get in there. It's gonna be some stuff you weren't expecting. You're gonna feel things you weren't quite signing up for, and all of a sudden you're finding yourself in a spot you don't recognize. I'm hoping that we get to see Lakia show up on the stage, because I miss him, man. I miss him in the frag movies. You know, really want to see him after the event. There wasn't much of a frag movie for him to have after Berlin, that's for sure. And hopefully this time around it's going to be different. But can we settle then on this group? I think looking at the terrifying group of death, let's do it again. Who's making it out? Who's topping and who's bottoming? Start with you, Steel.
Vision Strikers on top, Cloud9 on the bottom, and by the bottom I mean second. And then Full Sense is not making it out of the group. They're going 0-2. And yeah,
all right.
I think Lakia is gonna disable his e-meter and maybe get a map played.
Hell, maybe 2 if we're lucky. That's,
Yeah,
I don't want to
maybe
go
2.
Crazy here, but man can dream.
Yeah.
Rob, what about you, man?
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna say C9 is gonna take top the group. I think that they'll just kind of troll. I'm gonna say troll their way through, but I think they're gonna beat you know, whatever team that kind of comes their way, at least in the group stage. I think Vision Strikers will end up coming up on top of Fnatic. Unfortunately, I don't see Fnatic making out of this group. You know, I think I have a lot of respect for their like strategies and what they can bring to the table, but this is just such a stacked group. I'm going to struggle to see them making it out against Vision Strikers. So I got Vision Strikers as second, and yeah, Fnatic, and then Full Sense last.
All right. Well, I've got a candlelit dinner booked with Mystic, so I'm gonna have to go ahead and say Fnatic top this group. Otherwise, I'm gonna be in a lot of trouble. But yeah, I can definitely see that world. I can see Vision Strikers massively underestimated coming out of the previous tournament, as you were saying. Still, you know, they lost to Gambit, single elim. There's a real possibility maybe they push to finals, maybe they push at least to semis if things flip out differently. And so yeah, I can see them topping this group for sure. It's why we're calling it the group of death, man, because there are a lot of strong teams in here, and I can't wait for it to kick off. But boys, I think we've done it. I think we've previewed champions, gone through it, talked about most of the teams, and now the people at home know roughly who's going to be coming out on top. The only thing left to do is determine whether we're right or wrong. Thank you so much for joining us here today, gents. It has been an absolute pleasure sitting and chatting with you.